I think believing every single thought that comes into your head can be a very, very dangerous thing to do, just because not every single thought that comes into your head is actually true. And now, this can happen from a variety of things. So, in psychology, there's something that they call negative appraisals, and it has a lot of different synonyms as well. But the point is, you can interpret things in a negative way, what they call a cognitive bias. So you see something and you interpret it in a negative way immediately, even though it's a neutral thing. For example, someone slams the door shut in your face, for example, and you might interpret it negatively. You might think, "Oh, this person hates me," or you might think, they might be in a hurry or something. So, in the same way, your thoughts aren't necessarily true. They're very much neutral, and whatever you hear in your head is not something to be immediately accepted and validated, if that makes sense. You might, for example, you might be doing something. You might be, I don't know, riding a bicycle, for example, and you're not doing a very good job. You're not very stable. You might, I don't know, like you could have like bumped into something or something, and this makes you think like, oh, I'm a bad writer, like I'm horrible, like I can never learn anything, like this is something that kids even do or might be able to do, and I can't do it, right? I'm an adult and I can't even ride a bicycle, whatever. Like you can think of multiple examples, but the point is like this thought that you thought of, which is, oh, I'm horrible, it shouldn't be taken at face value. It shouldn't be taken as facts, if that makes sense, just because you will get all sorts of thoughts in your head even though you're not like actively trying to think them. So the idea that if I get a thought in my head without me thinking about it, so it must be true, like it must be something that, is pure facts because I had to think about it because it's true, because I didn't seek it, if that makes sense. Like I wasn't contemplating and reflecting and came to the conclusion that, I'm a failure. No, it came to my head when I was doing something, so it must be right. Like it must be true. Like I must be a failure. Like I don't know, like how do you say this? Validating these experiences and attributing your worth to these thoughts and like kind of, I don't know, like subscribing to these horrible thoughts that you get in your brain isn't really a healthy thing to do. And as I said, it can be quite dangerous just because these aren't facts. These are things that you think of based on a lot of different things. And there's a spiritual aspect to this as well. But the point I'm trying to make is it could be your upbringing, for example. It could have been that you grew up in a household where you were criticized a lot, right? So that makes you jump to these conclusions subconsciously, where not riding a bicycle correctly makes you immediately jump to the conclusion that I'm a failure. This is something that you might have been conditioned to, right? Or to believe in the same way, it might be just a neutral thought that has no value whatsoever. It might be not, from conditioning or from childhood, whatever. It could be just a fleeting thought, like you feel like a failure, but it doesn't mean anything. So you don't have to like deep every single thought that comes into your head. So this is also part of the video because a lot of people obviously say that you're getting bad thoughts because you grew up hearing them all the time. So this is how you see yourself and this is how you judge yourself, and the voices that you hear in your head are basically the voices of the abusers and the people who taught your self-worth was linked or associated with these um, things that you want to achieve or whatever it is, right? This is a common like rhetoric that you hear all the time, but sometimes it's just nothing. It's just genuinely nothing. It's just something that comes into your head. You don't have to identify with it. You don't have to relate to it. You don't have to validate it. You don't have to do anything actually. Just let it go and let it slide. And this is kind of similar, I guess, to mindfulness, which people practice these days. Um, to think of the thought as, I don't know, a leaf that's flowing down the river or something, and just let it pass, right? I'm not like advocating for mindfulness or something like that. Like I don't do it, I don't practice it, but I've tried it before and it was really interesting. Um, but the point is, just let it go, right? This is not a thought that you need to deep, if that makes sense. But if it keeps happening over and over and over, maybe it's time to like look at it, see where it's coming from, and trying to identify the source, if that makes sense. But thoughts will, like, you will get all sorts of different thoughts, and the sources of those thoughts can vary, and they can come, as I said, from childhood. It can be from nothing. It can be, and this is the spiritual side, it can be from Shaytan. So it can be a waswas, right? It can be the whispers of the devil. So, and this is extremely important, I think, and this is one of the like spins on this video, the spiritual spin, which is the whispers of the Shaytan, of the devil, that can have you thinking all sorts of different weird stuff, right? You might think, oh, because you missed a prayer and now you're a failure and you have to, I don't know, skip all the other prayers because you're not worthy anymore and Allah is not going to forgive you and all of these, wasawas. And you know how in Islam there are two different sort of sins. If I hope I'm saying this correctly, but they're like two different kind of sins, like shahawat and shubuhat. So temptations and then shubuhat. I'm not really sure what it is in English, but I guess like skepticism about God. Does God even exist? Is there an afterlife? Like that kind of thing. Like just shubhat. Oh, is the Quran even true? Is it like, I'm sure there are some mistakes, whatever. The hadith, do we take the hadith? Do we not take the hadith? These kind of things, like just skepticism in the actual ideology, right? So this is one type. This is worse, by the way, than temptations. And then there are the worldly temptations like money, I don't know, sexual temptations, whatever, like arrogance, all these things, like basically the worldly things. So the shaitan wants to get you to the point of this, where you become skeptic, right? Skeptic and eventually non-believer, right? So you're gonna get all different thoughts. Like even someone I know who's very close to me told me that they, even though they're quite religious, they told me that they get all these weird thoughts about like, oh, who created Allah, and why would Allah tell the angels that he was going to create Adam, and like he's Allah, he's above that, like why would he even communicate with it, like all of these questions. I don't want to even ask these questions because some people might start thinking about them and deeping them too much and then get astray or get misled. So the point is, shaitan is always there in the background, filling your head with all these weird thoughts and thoughts that you shouldn't take as at face value. That's the whole point of this video. So you shouldn't listen to these thoughts and identify with them and think like, oh, I am thinking about these things, like this is me, this is what my brain is thinking. No, sometimes it is, sometimes it's a subconscious thing, as I said, childhood, whatever. Sometimes it's just neutral, something you I don't know, might have seen on the news, social media, whatever, and then your subconscious brain brings that up, from, I don't know, the depths of your consciousness. That can happen, and this is where you begin to dissociate from these things because that's not you. And I made a video about negative self-talk, actually one of my very first videos, and I talked about that extensively. But this video, I want to focus more on the spiritual side, which is the shaitan. We have to, as Muslims, we have to understand that we will get very disturbing, very bad, very negative thoughts in our heads, literally from the shaitan. Like he's literally right there all the time. He doesn't sleep. Like he's always there for us, and he wants to misguide us. So he's gonna fill our heads with bad thoughts, whether again temptations or skepticism and disbelief. So he's gonna tell you like, oh, you're not a good person. Oh, you're not a good believer. Not a good Muslim. Oh, you shouldn't try to repent because Allah is not going to forgive you. You shouldn't try to become better, because there are a lot of people that are better than you, and you're not going to be anyone special. Whatever, like all of these, negative thoughts or whatever, right? Or maybe even temptations instead, like, oh, look at that person, like, look at whatever. This, I don't know, like you feel like in your head, you're thinking like, oh, maybe I should, engage in riba, like usury, right? I hope I said that correctly. I don't know. Is it like usury? I think it's usury. Yeah. So, and then when you see yourself thinking about these bad things, you're like, oh, like, am I a bad person? Like, how am I even thinking about these things? Or am I get like very disturbing, I don't know, like sexual thoughts, intrusive thoughts, like OCD kind of thing, right? And a lot of the ulama, like the scholars, say that like OCD is literally from the Shaytan. And obviously the psychiatric interpretation, like the secular Western psychiatric interpretation, is it's a psychiatric condition, right? Obsessive compulsive disorder, where you have to do some compulsions, some things to ease that anxiety that you have with these obsessive or obsessions that you have. So obviously we need like the full picture here. I don't take this or that only, like this is a complete holistic picture. But the point is, if the scholars say that, oh, OCD could very well be from the Shaytan, then, like a OCD with prayer, for example. Oh, did I make wudu? Like, did I don't know, um, pass wind in the prayer, like, and have to do it again, like whatever, like all these, thoughts. Some thoughts are meant to be ignored, as the scholars say that, if you get 3, 4, 5 of these thoughts during prayer, like, oh, I should redo my prayer. I probably, pass wind, whatever, did I even make wudu, whatever, like all these, wasawis, these whispers. At some point, you have to ignore them because, they're just from the shaitan. Like, that's not reasonable. So this is the point of the video. Like, not all the thoughts that you get should be taken at face value and should represent you. And you shouldn't identify with everything that you hear. Like, let these voices say whatever they want, but you have to be able to identify what's reasonable, what's actually your voice, and what's actually not your voice. So Shaitan's voice, childhood trauma voice, parents' voice, friends' voice, society's voice. You have to be able to differentiate between these voices and be able to know what's your voice and what's the voices that are not your voice, and then identify with yours and forget about the others. And then, yeah, so basically you need to have a filtering process. And in order to be able to do that, you have to know yourself well. So you have to know what you are and what you're not. This sounds I know, a bit too abstract, but you have to know what you are. So when someone tells you something that you're not, you're able to refute that. Like the shaitan's telling you, like, oh, you're a bad person. Oh, like, because you thought of the, I don't know, idea of stealing or the idea of lying or the idea of committing adultery, whatever. Like, just because you thought of it, then that automatically makes you a bad person. No, because that could have been like 100% from the shaitan. Like, it had nothing to do with you, right? So being able to filter out these negative thoughts and knowing, like, oh, as I said, like, this is shaitan, this is childhood, this is parents, this is I don't know, my teacher in high school, this is I don't know, whatever, like, this is my toxic friend, my toxic partner. Being able to kick out all these voices and then knowing what your voice is very, very important. So I would urge you not to take anything you hear in your head at face value, like it defines you. It doesn't define you unless you identify that as something you want to identify with and have it define you, if that makes sense. Like, and that should be your voice, shouldn't be something else. So yeah, I would urge you, next time if you get any negative thought, don't be too quick to identify with it. Let it simmer, let it rest for a bit, let it sit and analyze it. See, like, where is it coming from? Is this coming from me? Is this coming from Shaitan? Who's benefiting from this thought exactly? Is this, someone trying to destroy me, like the Shaitan? Or could it be someone who's trying to destroy me, like a toxic person from the past? But like, it's a thing that's still going on into the future, or into the present. So yeah, you get a thought, let it rest for a bit, analyze it, interpret it, and then make your decision. Don't take anything you think of at face value. All right, that was a quick one. Hope that was helpful, and thank you for watching.